the dim, echoing corridors of Harrington Tower, where the city's elite sealed multi-million-dollar deals high above the bustling streets, a piercing scream shattered the late-night silence. Maria Gonzalez, a weary janitor in her faded blue uniform, froze mid-mop as smoke began curling from the vents like insidious fingers. Her heart pounded, not from fear for herself, but for the tiny figure she spotted through the haze. A little girl, no more than 5, huddled alone in the executive lounge, her wide eyes reflecting the growing flames. The billionaire's daughter, left behind in a nanny's oversight during an emergency evacuation. Without a second thought, Maria dropped her bucket and charged into the inferno, her lungs burning, her skin blistering, as she scooped the child into her arms and leaped through a collapsing doorway. As sirens wailed in the distance, Maria collapsed on the sidewalk, shielding the girl with her body, whispering, "You're safe now, Mija," even as darkness closed in. Little did she know, this act of raw, selfless courage would unravel lives, forge unbreakable bonds, and reveal that true wealth lies not in fortunes, but in the human heart. Maria Gonzalez had always been invisible. At 42, she scrubbed the gleaming floors of Harrington Tower from dusk till dawn, her calloused hands a testament to a life of unrelenting grind. Born in a dusty border town, she'd crossed into the U.S. as a teenager, fleeing poverty and a family fractured by abandonment, her father vanishing when she was 10, leaving her mother to raise 4 kids on scraps. Maria married young, hoping for stability, but grief struck hard when her husband died in a construction accident 5 years ago, leaving her alone with their son, Tomas, now 12 and battling asthma from the polluted air of their cramped apartment in the city's underbelly. Isolation wrapped around her like a shroud. Friends were luxuries she couldn't afford, and trust was a relic from a kinder past. Each night, as she polished the marble lobbies where billionaires like Alexander Harrington strode past without a glance, Maria whispered prayers for just enough to pay the bills, to buy Tomas's inhalers, to keep the eviction notices at bay. That fateful evening started like any other. The tower, a monument to Harrington's tech empire, buzzed with after-hours activity. Alexander, 50 and widowed, had built his fortune from nothing, a rags-to-riches story polished for magazines. But success came at a cost. His wife, Elena, died in childbirth, leaving him with Emily, a bright-eyed girl who inherited her mother's curls and her father's distant demeanor. Alexander buried his grief in boardrooms, delegating Emily's care to nannies and tutors, convinced that providing every material comfort was love enough. But Emily felt the void, her small world echoing with loneliness, much like Maria's. The fire alarm blared suddenly, a faulty wiring in the HVAC system igniting chaos. Evacuation protocols kicked in, but in the confusion, Emily wandered off from her nanny, drawn to the lounge's panoramic windows overlooking the twinkling city. Maria, mopping the 45th floor, heard the child's cries first. Smoke billowed thick and acrid, flames licking the walls like hungry beasts. The elevators were locked down, stairs were a labyrinth away. Most would have fled, but Maria's maternal instinct surged. She grabbed a fire extinguisher, blasting a path through the heat, her uniform singeing, her eyes watering from the fumes. "Emily, hold on," she shouted, though she'd only glimpsed the girl's name on a forgotten toy once. Reaching the lounge, Maria found Emily coughing, trapped behind a fallen beam. The ceiling groaned ominously. With adrenaline-fueled strength, Maria heaved the beam aside, ignoring the searing pain as embers scorched her arms. Scooping Emily up, she wrapped her in a wet mop cloth for protection and dashed for the emergency exit. But the flames blocked the door, a wall of fire roaring like a demon. Spotting a service window, Maria smashed it with her elbow, glass shattering like her own fragile hopes. She lowered Emily out first onto the fire escape, then followed, but an explosion from within hurled debris at her. A chunk of metal struck her leg, fracturing bone, and she tumbled, clutching Emily as they hit the ground below. Paramedics swarmed as the fire department contained the blaze. Alexander arrived in his chauffeured car, his face ashen, shoving through the crowd. "Emily," he cried, kneeling to embrace his daughter, who clung to him, sobbing. Then his eyes fell on Maria, strapped to a stretcher, her face smeared with soot, burns blistering her skin. "She saved me, Daddy," Emily whispered. The nice lady from the floors. Guilt crashed over Alexander like a tidal wave. He'd never noticed Maria, one of the countless workers keeping his empire spotless. Now, her sacrifice pierced his armored heart. At the hospital, he demanded the best care for her. Private room, top surgeons. Tomas arrived, wide-eyed and terrified, holding his mother's hand as she woke from surgery. "Why'd you do it, Mom?" he asked, tears streaming. Maria smiled weakly. "Because no child should be alone in the dark, Iho. Kindness is all we have." Alexander visited, awkward in his tailored suit amid the beeping machines. "I owe you everything," he said, voice cracking. Maria waved it off. Just doing what anyone would. But it wasn't anyone. It was her, a woman who'd lost so much yet gave without hesitation. As days passed, Alexander learned her story, the poverty, the grief, the isolation mirroring his own hidden pain. He offered to cover her medical bills, but it felt insufficient. In a quiet moment, watching Emily draw a picture for Maria, a stick-figure hero with a mop, he realized this stranger had shown him what true guardianship meant. Kindness, he thought, wasn't a transaction. It was a bridge over chasms of despair. Maria's recovery was slow, marked by physical therapy and phantom pains, but hope flickered. Tomas's school performance improved with the stability of paid leave. Alexander, compelled by an unfamiliar warmth, began checking in, bringing meals, even playing board games with Tomas. For the first time in years, Maria felt seen, not as a janitor, but as a person. Yet doubts lingered. Was this pity? Would it vanish like her father's promises? Little acts piled up, Alexander funding Tomas's asthma treatments, Maria sharing stories of her late husband that eased his own widowhood. The seed of connection took root, transforming isolation into tentative bonds. But the real shock was yet to come, as kindness rippled outward, challenging fates and rewriting destinies. Months blurred into a year, and Maria's life, once a monotonous cycle of survival, began to bloom under the unexpected sunlight of compassion. Discharged from the hospital with a limp that reminded her of the fire's fury, she returned to a transformed reality. Alexander, wrestling with his own isolation, nights spent in a mansion echoing with Elena's absence, insisted she take a supervisory role at Harrington Tower, with better pay and hours that allowed time for Tomas. "It's not charity," he said firmly. "It's what you deserve." Maria accepted warily, her pride a battered shield, but the job lifted the weight of poverty. Bills paid on time, groceries without coupons. Tomas even joined a soccer team, his laughter filling their upgraded apartment, a gift from Alexander's foundation. Yet emotional scars ran deeper. Maria grappled with abandonment's ghosts, fearing this benevolence was fleeting. Alexander, too, faced his demons. Grief had made him a fortress, work his only companion, leaving Emily to navigate childhood's storms alone. Through Maria's gentle presence, he learned vulnerability. She'd invite them for homemade tamales, sharing tales of her Mexican roots, and Emily would curl up beside her, calling her Tia Maria. In these moments, isolation cracked. Alexander opened up about Elena's death, the guilt of being an absent father. Maria listened, her empathy a balm, reminding him that love wasn't perfect, it was persistent. Struggles persisted, weaving tension into their budding connection. Tomas, thriving but resentful of his father's absence, acted out at school, echoing Maria's own youthful rebellion. One night, after a suspension for fighting, Maria broke down. "I can't lose you too," she wept. Alexander, dropping by unannounced, witnessed the raw pain. Instead of judgment, he shared his story of losing his parents young, building walls to survive. "Kindness saved me once. A mentor who believed in me," he confessed. Together, they guided Tomas, Alexander mentoring him in coding, turning anger into ambition. Hope emerged in small victories. Tomas's first A in math, Emily's bedtime stories read by Maria, bridging their worlds. As time wove its tapestry, kindness expanded outward. Maria, empowered, started a support group for building staff. Immigrants like her facing poverty and grief. Alexander funded it anonymously, but word spread. Emily, inspired by her hero, organized a school drive for underprivileged kids, her small act sparking a chain reaction. Yet the true transformation simmered beneath, a life-changing connection forging in quiet conversations. Maria discovered Alexander's hidden philanthropy, masked by his stoic facade. He learned her dreams of opening a community center, stalled by hardship. The shock came on Emily's 7th birthday, a lavish but intimate party at the Harrington estate. Maria attended as family, not staff. Amid laughter, Emily presented Maria a handmade necklace, for saving me, and for being my friend. Tears flowed, but the evening turned surreal when Alexander pulled Maria aside. "I've been thinking," he said, voice trembling. "That night wasn't just about saving Emily, it saved me too. I was drowning in isolation, blind to the humanity around me." He revealed a foundation in her name, dedicated to helping single parents, $1 million endowment. But the real bombshell, genetic testing for Emily's rare blood condition uncovered a distant familial link. Maria's abandoned father? Alexander's long-lost uncle, making them kin through blood, not just heart. Stunned, Maria reeled. Abandonment's wound reopened, but healed in the revelation. "We're family," she whispered. Alexander nodded, eyes misty. "In every way that matters." The connection, born of one act, came full circle. Maria's sacrifice not only saved a child but reunited fractured lineages, turning strangers into soul-deep allies. Years later, as Tomas graduated college on a Harrington scholarship and Emily pursued social work, their lives intertwined. Maria's community center thrived, a beacon for the isolated and grieving, proving kindness's ripple could reshape worlds. In the end, as Maria stood on the tower's rooftop, watching the city lights with Alexander and the kids, she marveled at the journey, from ashes to abundance. Struggles had forged hope, isolation yielding to love. The transformative power of kindness wasn't magic. It was the quiet revolution of open hearts. In a world often divided by wealth and walls, this story reminds us that empathy bridges the deepest divides, love mends the broken, and humanity shines brightest when we risk everything for one another, proving that true miracles unfold not in grand gestures, but in the simple choice to care. Moral of the story: a single act of kindness, born from the heart's deepest compassion, can ignite a chain of transformations that heal wounds, forge unbreakable bonds, and return to us in ways we never imagined.